Welcome back to Abingdon Green in the heart of Westminster. But let's take us away from the drama here. The impact of Brexit on business and trade in the UK is continuing to raise some concerns. Many business leaders have been fretting about the possible impact of a no-deal scenario. However, our next guest isn't one of them. Joining me now, business owner Lance Forman, a supporter of the Leave Means Leave campaign. Lance, lovely to see you. Let's just, before we get into the no-deal situation, just as a British citizen, looking at what happened in Parliament yesterday, a vote of confidence, a vote of no confidence in reality in Theresa May, what are your reflections?
I don't actually think it's changed that much. She still is presenting this deal that nobody likes. The British public don't like it. None of the MPs like it. And she needs to move away from that. I think she needs to press the rewind button to earlier in the year where she said no deal is better than a bad deal. Everybody thinks her deal is a bad deal, so she has to be prepared and she has to threaten the EU with no deal. The EU don't want no deal. Ideally, we would love to do a free trade deal, but no deal's not a problem for us either.
Why is it not a problem? Because, and frankly, you have greater experience in this world than I do. The business leaders that I have spoken to have been practically of one voice, that no deal is the worst possible outcome.
Well, if you think about it, no deal actually means many deals. Because if you don't have a deal where you're tied into a customs union with the EU, it frees you up to do many trade deals with the rest of the world. The problem with the Chequers deal is that we can't really leave the EU until the EU tell us we can leave. And whilst we're in that position and we're held to ransom by the EU, we can't do deals with anyone else. So no deal actually really means many deals, and the Chequers deal means no deal.
Wouldn't it have been better then, from the very beginning, that politicians were just a little bit more straightforward with us, that there were two options in essence on the table? You can have all the free trade agreements that you want, all the separation from the European Union, but in essence you're going to have a hard border in Ireland, or the opposite. If you want to, you'll have to have, if you want to avoid that, you have to have closer ties with Europe than perhaps many of the 17.4 million who voted for Brexit would actually appreciate.
Well, if you actually go back to what the people voted for, I actually think they voted, in a sense, for no deal, because David Cameron tried to do a deal with the EU. He came back to the people and said, look, they've offered us this deal. It's a pretty hopeless deal. So I'm going to throw it out to you. What do you want to do? Should we leave or should we stay? And people voted to leave. And it was on the basis of there not being a deal. A deal was never a prerequisite. It was only ever going to be a bonus. And yes, it'd be great to do a free trade deal. I think the EU actually really want to do a free trade deal with us. They're doing it with Canada, with Japan. I think they'd want to do it with us. But it's a question of how you get to that point.
Why are so many people, though, who are looking at no deal, why are they so sanguine about WTO rules? I mean, part of the reason that so many people voted to leave the European Union was that you had a group of faceless bureaucrats dictating rules to us. Well, you're just swapping one set for another, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't think people really understand it. You know, in my own business, okay, we have a smoked salmon business. We export all over the world. We export into the EU and we export to the rest of the world. It's really not that much more complicated exporting to the rest of the world. And in fact, we export far more to the USA, where we don't have, our country doesn't have a trade deal with the US, than we do into Europe. They pay 5% duty on our product in the US, and yet people are buying more of our product over there.
But even you will concede that, for those businesses that are doing predominantly trade with the European Union, the Chancellor saying the other day that we're nowhere near being ready for a no-deal scenario, couldn't get it done in 2 years anyway. Look at the port of Dover.
Well, I think that's scaremongering, and where there's a will, there's a way. We need to prepare for no deal. That doesn't mean we'll end up with no deal, and in fact, the better prepared we are for no deal, the less chance
you still have to build car parks, lorry parks.
No, not really. I mean, look, common sense usually prevails in the end. I mean, and German car makers will still want to be selling us their cars. We've heard this many times. Of course they will do, because at the end of the day, if businesses can't trade, taxes won't be paid, and every government is going to suffer. What you have to do in any negotiation is think what the other side wants, and you have to look at the EU's position. They are in the toughest position of them all. They're in a much tougher position than us, because if Britain does well out of these negotiations and Britain thrives outside the EU, there's no real purpose for the EU at all. And if, on the other hand, we do badly because they try and punish us, they will be punishing European businesses too. So they're in a difficult position. What they really want out of us is this £39 billion. That's what they really want. And so we have to use that as leverage in the same way as they're using Ireland. We have to use the money as leverage.
Well, let's see what Theresa May comes back with this time. Lance, many
Thank
thanks
you.
for joining us. Time, appropriately enough, at the end of Sunrise today, to take another look at the weather. Here's Isabel.